Hello, this is Mr. Deckard. It's Monday morning as of when I'm making this. I'm sorry I'm a bit under the weather today, but I thought I would go ahead and post a video to continue our lesson on Flash. This is just going to be a very quick follow-up or part 2 to the Angry Bird video that we did. And today's video is brought to you by Studio D Productions. That's right. We're Studio D, and beautiful Studio D in my home. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to look at our Angry Birds here. We're going to finish up the graphic itself, and then I'm going to show you how to save it, store it, so that you can reuse it for future projects. This video is going to be very quick. So anyway, you'll notice that if we scale this up a little bit using our third tool down, which is our transform tool, free transform, which you can also get to by hitting Q, you'll notice that these birds have darker outlines than inside, right? And I'm sorry, I'm doing my best. The thickness varies, which is something you can't do in this program. You can do in other programs, but you really can't do here. We can do a uniform thickness and we can make it look better. This thin outline doesn't quite look right. So what I'm going to do is go back to my select tool, which is the black arrow, and hold my shift. And what I want to try to do is select all of the line segments around the perimeter. And I'm going to have to include that one, that one, that one, that one. Shift lets you do multiple selections. You just hold it down while you're doing your selections. And then, I missed a piece right here, didn't I? There we go. So now I go to Properties, and right here, where you can see my mouse shaking, it says 1.00. You can start sliding this to the right and kind of eyeball about where it should be. I'm going to hit 5 on my numpad, and that looks about right to me. I can bump it up a couple more and see what it looks like. 7 looks a little strong to me. Let's try the sweet spot in between. 6. I'm going to go back to 5. 5 looks good. I'm going to click off, and you see it can begin to look a bit overdone if you go too far. I'm going to stick with that. I also missed this one right here. I probably ought to go ahead and do this because it looks like the tail's cut out then. Run that up to 5. And that's actually looking pretty uniform. But now this looks a little thin on the inside, doesn't it? I'm not going to run those up to 5. I think I'm going to run those up to maybe 3. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go about this a different way. No, I'm not. Because if I was thinking about doing an all selection, doing 3, then coming back out and selecting these and bumping them to 5. But if I do that, you know what? It still may be the faster way. Let's try this. I'm going to go ahead, because if I have to go inside of the graphic and begin to individually select everything, it could get pretty messy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stroke all of it at 3 and see what that looks like, and then I'll go back and select the outside because it doesn't take that long to do. And so if I have to delete some lines, it's easier than doing a messy selection, mass selection. So I'm really struggling. I'm having a hard time here. So I'm going to hit 3 on the stroke, and that's going to take everything. All right, now I like this because what it did not touch this area where I deleted the strokes before or turned them off. But look how much stronger this looks, and look how it looks compared to here. So that's actually good. That's the way I should have done it in the first place. Perhaps maybe I should start the video again. So now I'm going to hold my shift down and do my selections like I did before. Sometimes it can be a little messy in there. I hope I get to the video before my voice goes. Then I'm going to bump that to 5. right there. And I think I'll have it. That's looking pretty good. Again, I wish I could do variable thickness down here on the bottom. You see how this is thicker along the bottom? And that's to replicate the shadow and the shape. But you really can't do this. So this is the second best thing you can do. And I think that cleaned that up quite a bit. All right, so graphic is pretty much done. So what do you do with it? All right, well, right now, if I were to select this, you would see, be careful not to touch that. You would see that all the individual areas are still selectable, which means if I accidentally grab it, I could do that. Don't want to do that. So how do you protect it? Well, you select all like that, and then on the top row of your keyboard, you have a bunch of keys that have an F and a number next to them. You want to hit F8, which is almost the center line straight up the keyboard, right above the L090 F8. Boom. And you want to call this something, so I'm going to call it Angry Bird Red in case I were to make others. I'm going to change this to graphic. Angry Bird Red graphic. And just in case you missed that, select your graphic and hit F8. Creates a symbol for the library. Be sure to select graphic and then hit F11 to open your library. So I'm going to leave that up and we're going to hit F11. Well, actually I have to select the program. Now I'm going to hit F11. Boom. Now, if you wanted to just do this manually, properties and library should be up here. But I'm telling you to hit F11 in the event that somebody's been on your machine and they've turned off your library. F11 will turn it back on. It is possible that it could be turned off. Now, anything that's turned off on your machine can be found under Window, and you can see all the things that I have turned on here and all the things I could turn on. Common thing to get turned off is Tools. On the right hand side, right through here, Window, Tools. It turns it back on. Down here we have the timeline. Sometimes it gets turned off. Timeline. And you need your timeline on not to make movies yet, which we will get to, but so that you have access to the layers. And I know I told you when we started Flash that you always name your layers. Well, in this instance you're not, because we aren't actually creating anything just yet for the timeline, so or that layer. We are creating an object that we're putting in the library. That's different because this is what we're creating now is what's called an asset, and that is something that you will use to make something else. And I know I'm getting a little bit into the weeds here, but all that really means is that this may or may not be on layer 1 after I make it. I might make 10 different assets before I start actually constructing anything on layer 1. And I have all the pieces ready so I can just drag them onto the stage. I hope that made sense. Let's say, for instance, I want to make all of these birds and put them in my library. I could do that. And yeah, and then I could start building them on the stage, or I might start by building the scenery and then drag my bird onto the stage. There are lots of things I could do, but the library, what's cool about that is now I'm going to go ahead and select this object and delete it. And you're going, oh no, I just made that. Well, as it happens, and you can scale them. Of course. Here's something else you can do. I'm going to break this one apart by hitting Control B. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change its color to this blue right here. So check it out. I want to grab that blue, right? And I'm going to try to get a darker version of that blue. getting a little tricksy here. See, I knew right up here I needed to touch it. Right there. Boom. All right. And then I can surround it. Hit F8. Call it Angry Bird Blue. Boom. So I have a red and I have a blue. See, that's very, very simple after you get to that stage. So I think that looks pretty cool. I don't know if I'd leave that color there. I think I'd probably change that to a yellow, except that's a yellow. I don't know. Maybe that red there. I'm going to break it apart. I'm going to do it. I'm going to delete that symbol. I'm going to do it the right way. Cancel, delete, not create a new one. All right. No, it's okay. It's okay. Watch. I'm going to pull this back on, break it apart. It's a shame because I really had it locked down. Oh well. All right. So Control B. We'll go through this again. Sometimes I mess myself up. And oh, by the way, when you delete something from a library, Control Z doesn't work. So be very, very careful about deleting things from a library. Once that's done, you cannot get it back. So I'm going to hit my fill bucket and do this in reverse. I'm going to get the dark side first. And remember, I've got to zoom in. There we go. Zoom out. And sample from here and here. I don't know if I got the right sample this time. It doesn't look as good as it did, does it? It's a little too dark. See if I can sample a lighter version right there. Yeah, that's better. I like that better. Now I'm going to use this orange right here for the bottom and see how that looks. There it is. I think it does. I think that actually is the way to go. Makes it look distinctive. So F8, blue, oh, Angry Bird Blue. It is a graphic. You always want to check. And why that's important is because when we get into the properties later on, if we're trying to do particular things, especially if I'm trying to pull an effect, the attributes that I give to my graphic or my movie clip or whatever I put in my library as an asset will determine what options are available. So there are a certain set of options that I have at my disposal so long as this is a graphic. And if you look right where I'm shaking my mouse, this little picture right here is an indication that this is a graphic. If it had like a clipboard, then you'd know it was a movie. And then it has also the ability to make buttons for web pages. But with that, this is pretty much it for the day. If you know, and priority-wise, you should complete your graphic, obviously, before you get to this stage where you're creating symbols for your library. But the cool thing is, once those symbols are created, and by the way, final thing I'll tell you is, you notice I deselected that, like so. When you put it in the library, before you ever take anything off the stage here, because you're going to make something else, make sure you deselect it, because if you don't, if you create this and then create a symbol out of it, but don't deselect this and then delete it, you can accidentally delete it from your library at the same time. That's a bad deal, because once it's gone from here, it's gone, and you'd have to make it again. I was a little clumsy in the construction today. I'm sorry I'm not thinking all that clearly, but I hope this lesson is clear enough. And with that, this has been a Studio D production, and we are signing off now. Have a good day.